And then also on the 12th, that is the Dream Gate match between Shun Skywalker and Yuki Yoshioka. So as you were saying, how to get him out of that. That's all we know about the show on the 12th. I do agree with your points you said about things to keep an eye on with this Corkin show or this match.
Mike, I think Shun Skywalker is winning the Dream Gate title this week.
All right. Lay out your argument for Shun defeating Yuki Yoshioka.
We've talked on this show about how Yoshioka's running out of former Dream Gate champions to wrestle. You know, Doi is really the only one that's left before you get into like Don Fuji and Ryo Saito and Susumu Mochizuki, who can obviously handle that spot, but he's been so de-emphasized over the last year. I don't see them doing that, especially less than a year removed from what felt like his final Dream Gate shot. I just think there's a lot more mileage you can get out of Shun winning this match. You can start anew here, and as the year continues, I expect the story to be Shun versus SBK or Shun versus Fujiwara or something like that. I don't have all the details figured out in my head, but I think for as great as the Yoshioka story has been, I think we've seen the Yoshioka story run its course, and the issue is that if he gets through this, and let's just say for fun that he wrestles Doi in March at Champion Gate, he's always going to beat Doi. Where do you go from there? The more I've sat with this, the more that I play out possible scenarios. If Yoshioka wins this, I think he is at least going to be in contention to beat Shima's Dream Gate defense record. I don't see that being the plan here, though. I think they're going to get the belt off of him, and I think we're going to see heel Shun Skywalker as our Dream Gate champion as we talk about these shows next week.
Well, I am not sold, but I am a little bit more doubt.
I think it's like 60-40 Yoshioka. I think he's the favorite, but I don't expect him to waltz through this match. I mean, if Shun wins, again, it's kind of what I think is going to happen, but I'm not going to be surprised if I'm right. Let's put it that way. Like, I think there's a very realistic chance he's going to come out the winner.
Yeah, I guess my big counter to that is you don't do this ace solidifying ring and cut it off in his first defense in a new year in a building like this.
It's tough because they've already done so much for him. I mean, as we've talked about, every house across the board is up with Yoshioka as the champion. All of their markets are in better shape than they were when Kai or when Yamato was champion in 2021, 2022. I think he's done his job. I think there's a Yuki Yoshioka run a year from now, 2 years from now, 5 years from now, where he's going to rattle off 10, 11 defenses, and maybe he hits 15. Maybe he's champion for 2 years. I don't think that's out of the question. I think if there's going to be a guy to do it, it's either going to be him or it's going to be Takuma Fujiwara. But I think this story has been told. I think it's going to be a little bit weird if he runs through all of these available Dream Gate champions and then it's, all of a sudden it's just him versus Mochizuki Jr. or him versus Ishin or him versus Dragon Kid. I think we've seen the end of this story, and for as much as I've enjoyed it, if we're going to move on, I think moving on to Shun is going to be the right decision.
Yeah, I will say that if this is an exit ramp, Shun makes more sense than anyone else other than Benkei last month.
Yeah, and you got to remember, the specific history between Shun and Yoshioka, which doesn't seem to have been played up too much in the build of this, but these are the two guys that spent time in Mexico together. This is the guy that Shun insisted wasn't Dia Inferno because they spent time in Mexico together. This is the guy that Shun helped turn babyface when Shun turned his back on Dragon Dia. This isn't a random defensive heel challenger beating babyface champion. These are chapters in a much larger story between these two guys overall.
Yeah, and that also makes me think that they can revisit this on a bigger stage.
100%. Again, I was stunned that they booked this for Corrigan Hall. It's what put my antennas up was, we haven't really talked about attendance here. I'm assuming that the show on Wednesday that'll be done by the time everybody hears this, I'm assuming that's going to do around 1,100 fans. I would hope, and maybe I'll be proven incorrect, but I would hope that Shun versus Yoshioka does 1,200, 1,300, 1,400 fans, really in that 1,300 to 1,400 ballpark. That's a big match. I mean, that could have headlined Gate of Destiny, Dangerous Gate, Dead or Alive. Could have been a Kobe World main event, quite frankly, and they're doing it in Cork and Hall, which I think is very, very interesting.
Yeah, and the way it's been built and everything. I do see your argument. I think I'm just going to become the Yuki Yoshioka defender from now on.
Yeah, look, if he beats Shun, great, because this title run has been awesome, and I expect it to continue to be. But I think this is the end. I think we have seen this Yuki Yoshioka run play out. The way the Dragon Gate calendar works, it is so hard for me to. I go Kobe to Kobe because in my head it's like, well, they'll win the match here, here, and here, and then all of a sudden they're 1 year as champion, and that is just harder to get to than I think I let it play out in my head sometimes. Realistically, again, he's either going to hold this belt for like 2 years or he's going to lose it here, and I really lean in favor of him losing it here.
Yeah,
he's under 30. They can do the big, all caps, big Yuki Yoshioka title reign another time, because assuming this match doesn't fall flat and, something would have to go catastrophically wrong for it to do so, by the time Yoshioka challenges for the Dream Gate belt again, I think people are going to be salivating for him to be champion because he's been so good in this first run. To me, there's no reason that people wouldn't want to see that again.
Yeah, and it's something that, that there's enough time, and you have some folks who probably need to get that solidifying. That I guess the other thing about Shun as champion coming out Thursday is they don't like going heel face heel that often. They like to space out the heel runs a little bit more, I feel like.
Yeah, so it was Kai Yoshioka, but doesn't that Kai run, that just feel, I mean, I know that was last year, but doesn't that feel like ages ago?
Yeah, it does. But I mean, at the same time, Shun Skywalker's title run feels ages ago, and then Eita before that. So we're talking about, Eita to Kai, that's 2 years. I just think 6 months later is not it.
Okay, so let me walk you through my nightmare scenario, because I think part of what made Dragon Gate in 2022 so enjoyable for me was that the Dream Gate scene, everything from March onwards with Shimizu versus Kai. Look, the Minoru thing sucked, but the matches were good. The Dream Gate scene was far more enjoyable than it was in most years during, a sluggish Yamato run or whatever. Is there a situation that we find ourselves in where Shun wins the belt, BB Hulk gets kicked out of Zebrats, and we're doing Shun versus BB Hulk at Champion Gate?
That
would
Hulk
suck.
Yeah,
I was kind of into Yamato versus Hulk, but we've seen that show did not have a super strong number at the box office, and then the Hulk, I think it was the second day of the King of Gate tour in Hokkaido, his hometown, that number was much lower than the KZ matches. It's clear that Hulk's time at the box office is not now.
Yeah, I just can't see the rationale behind it.
That would suck. I don't want that, but it seems, unless there's some weird swerve coming on, it seems like Hulk's days in Zebrats are numbered, which at that point you would hope that he's cycled down to team with Don Fuji and Shuji Kondo, and maybe he and Eita do a little thing together, and I think that would be okay. But they're going to have to do something with him in Zebrats, and I hope they don't go back to the Kai thing. I don't really want more Kai versus Hulk in my life, and that kind of leaves it with Hulk versus Shun if they go down that avenue.
Yeah, I just think almost any result that a heel Shun title run, you're going to have to probably clue in okay, how did that match the night before ended? And they are going heavily towards Hulk dissension, and we do not need babyface Hulk right now, especially babyface title challenger Hulk.
Yeah, I'm okay with babyface Hulk. I'm not okay with challenging for a Dreamgate title babyface Hulk. There's a huge difference there to me.
Yeah, no, I'm totally with you on that. And I just look at Hulk, and if it wasn't for the fact that he was in Z-Brats and he was in this role, I just see him kind of with the veteran unaffiliateds at this point. And I just can't put myself through the hoop to think about like Hulk turn, Shun win, then Hulk versus Shun at Champion Gate. That might be a bit too far.
Hulk is over 40 years old now, so his days seem to be numbered. He is over 40 years old. He moves around like somebody that's over 50. This feels like it could be a swan song of sorts for him. The Yamato match symbolically and physically felt like it should be his final Dreamgate match. I just don't think we can ignore that possibility come the first weekend of March.
Yeah, now my antenna is up after we're talking about this.